Pastor Meador, thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's always good to be with you.
Brad Meador, pastor of Athey Creek Church in the greater Portland area, which hosted an evangelistic crusade in August. The PDX Crusade drew tens of thousands of people over a 2-day event. Several thousand people came to Christ, and it drew my interest, Pastor, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Given Portland's reputation as one of the most unchurched areas in the country, what led you to think now was the time to host this crusade and to organize something like this?
Well, Michael, there's quite a story with that. About 30 years ago, I moved my family from Southern Oregon to Portland because we've always been on that, the least church city in America. And we moved up here just to preach the gospel, to teach the Bible verse by verse through the scriptures. And we've seen some really good fruit, but at the same time, our city seems to spiral, and especially after 2020. Our city has become a little bit of a byword, and Portland, Oregon, it's kind of the crazy city in America, and that's not necessarily. I mean, we love our city, but it's true. We've really lost our way, and the darkness here is palpable. It's funny when I travel around. I go to these other cities in America and you realize, wow, these are lighter and I don't feel like I'm in enemy territory. But then you land back in Portland and you realize, wow, we've got a battle here. And so my leadership team, we decided to just pray, Lord, what could we do to reach into the downtown Portland, into the greater Portland area? Just turn on the light switch, and the thing that the Lord just stirred in our heart is the old school Billy Graham crusade model, just to get the biggest venue you could get and fill it up and preach the gospel. And so about a year and a half ago, we took on this challenge, and we decided that became the theme, that we got to turn on the light. John 8:12, Jesus, said, I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And so that was kind of our theme. Let's turn on the light switch with Jesus and let people hear the good news. And so 35,000 people showed up. It was actually, we actually had 2 events scheduled, Saturday and Sunday, but those filled up in 10 minutes on the tickets. And so we had to get a third, and that filled up as well. And so with all those events, we had quite a lot of people come, and about 3,200 people responded to the gospel. And since then, we've been baptizing every weekend, hundreds of people. It's been really, in our own little microcosm here, we're seeing kind of this really amazing revival.
It was a free event, but it was a ticketed event. Is that right? You had to get a ticket, but it was free. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The Moda Center is where the Blazers play, and they have a rule that you have to have it ticketed. And it has to do with security, but that actually was quite an obstacle for us because Ticketmaster wanted $7 per ticket, even though it was a free event. And we were like, hey, we're just trying to shine the light in our community, and charging us that much, if you do the math on that, it starts to get expensive. But the Lord kind of worked that out for us. Next time we have some ideas how to try to make that better. It's a little tricky trying to do a free event with ticketing, but the Lord worked that out.
Of course, you said 2 events. I think it was originally scheduled for 2 events, but you added a third when it sold out. What were your emotions when the first 2 sold out and you had to add a third event?
Well, I think it was a little bit of panic because we thought, man, the last thing we want is people who are unsaved not being able to get in. And so we looked at a bunch of different options, and that seemed like the best one. So we added a Saturday noon, kind of like a matinee sort of, afternoon kind of thing. And that worked out good. But we were just trying to make sure that all the Christian folks at Athey Creek in our church and our community could invite unsaved people. And so that was kind of tricky with free tickets. And, sometimes people, you invite them and they may not show up. So there was a lot of variables that we were a little concerned. We wanted to see it full. So the Saturday was about, 3/4 full. Then the Saturday night was maybe 5/8 full. And then the Sunday night was just packed to the gills. We had no more room, and there was thousands of people waiting on the outside to try to get in. So next time we're going to try to balance that out a little more, I think.
You said 3,200 made decisions for Christ, 35,000 attended, or approximately. Those are approximate numbers. To what do you attribute those numbers? Because I can imagine in the planning stages, you had all sorts of emotions over what this would be like. You could imagine maybe in your lowest moments, you thought, is anybody going to come?
Yeah.
So what were your emotions when you had that such that big of an outpouring of the Spirit?
Well, I think gratitude to the Lord, because I did feel that. I thought, who would want to come, and why would people even? One of the things that helped me have the confidence to trust that the Lord would work this out is, our church, we've grown in the last 30 years, and, just our congregation could fill the Moda Center for one service, which we've always thought that'd be kind of fun. But then the goal was to have our congregation invite unsaved friends. And so I was hoping that would fill things up. And I think we saw that, but at the same time, you never know about these things. And it could have been, I saw in my mind's eye all kinds of failure possibilities, but I just felt gratitude for the Lord. He always over delivers. It's hard to even quantify the ripple effect that's even happened since the crusade. But just having that many Christians in the Moda Center, just worshiping the Lord. We had Chris Tomlin and Zach Williams, Ann Wilson, Taya, Carrie Job and her husband Cody. Like what an amazing bunch of worship leaders and song leaders that just you could really sense the presence of the Lord and the Holy Spirit moving in that place.
How many volunteers did it take to put something like this on?
We had 3,900 volunteers. The Moda Center said they'd never seen anything like this, and our volunteers are the ones who really made it happen. But we had a bunch of local churches here jump in with the volunteer, and we had more than enough. And it was just such a neat testimony of Christians just being excited about the gospel and the idea of evangelism, and it was great to see so many young volunteers. We had like a ton of Gen Z volunteers that were just excited, and that was maybe one of the greatest encouragements to me personally, is just seeing these young people come and just ready to roll. They did some hard work too. It was 2 days of just going crazy. We had 11 semis drive up to fill up all the production stuff, and like 5 merch, with shirts and stuff for the artists, and like it was an amazing work, and those people did a great job.
You told me earlier, I forgot how long you've lived there, but I'm curious, if you don't know this personally, what have people said to you who have lived in that area? Do you think the region is more open to the gospel than it was a decade or two ago?
But that's a great question. When I first moved here, Portland had been long coined the post-Christian city, but I believe today Portland is kind of post-Christian because it's gone so nuts. If you go downtown, it's sort of parts of Portland looks like Armageddon, and there's just, we legalized drugs. Human trafficking is worse in Portland than any other city in America. We've got more strip clubs than any other city in America per capita. And I think a lot of our people, Christian, secular, whatever political party, I think everybody has to admit, wow, we are lost. And so I think there's an openness to the gospel of Jesus. And we sense that when I was able to share the gospel there at the Moda, there was just, you can tell people are hungry for, not politics or not trying to figure out how to solve everything. They've been trying that for decades now, but there's just a sense that Jesus really is the answer. And I think Portland is ripe for that right now.
Would you say it's so dark in Portland that the light of Christ shines brighter than normal?
Oh yeah, I really do. John 1:5 says the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And we just see how the light really does. All you got to do in a dark room is turn on the light switch, and then the darkness is gone. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Do you have any favorite stories or anecdotes from those 2 days? Maybe somebody who accepted Christ, somebody
Oh
who came
boy.
forward?
There's a lot of great stories. I'll tell you, there's a couple of fun ones. Two really quick things. Several of the Moda Center staff accepted Christ. One lady who operated one of the elevators, one of the security guards accepted Jesus, and what a cool thing. But probably one of my favorite stories is a lady that lives in Nashville. She used to live in Portland. Her son still lives here. She flew out from Nashville to Portland to make sure her son went to the crusade. Like she brought him personally, and then he brought three of his buddies, and she, they were sitting in the Coliseum, and she saw her son and their buddies kind of fidgeting and goofing around and during the crusades, and she was just praying the whole time that her son would hear the good news. Well, when the invitation to come down to accept Christ came, her son and the buddies all looked at each other and said, "Let's go." And she just started bawling. She actually called me from Nashville and told me the story, and I didn't know that until she told me. But she's just saying how her son's like a new person, and her son and their buddies are going to church now, and it's just such a cool story. That's just one of many.
What happens to the people who went forward? I'm assuming they're follow-ups here.
Yes.
They're not being dropped. So for those who are wondering what happens.
Yeah, we kind of took a chapter from Billy Graham, but also maybe you've heard of Greg Laurie and the Harvest Crusades down there, and we tapped those guys. What's the most effective thing you've done? And so really we gathered a lot of local churches, good solid Bible teaching churches, and we got volunteers and we trained them long before the crusade so that when people came forward, they could come up and pray with those people, get some information, not too much information. Sometimes people are a little leery of that, but just to give so that we could contact them. And then we realize where all these people live, and then our goal is to connect them to the church that's closest to them. And so after the crusade, each church got a list of bunches of names, and then they followed up in calling, and then we're following up with each of those churches to make sure that that's happening. And the artist, Chris Tomlin told me one of the coolest part of doing a crusade like this, he said, is, sometimes we do concerts and we don't know what happens after the people accept Christ. But a crusade like this, where we're really following up and keeping in touch with the people, he said it's such an honor to do a thing like a crusade. And I kind of have to echo that. It's just such a cool follow-up process. And so we've seen some really good success with that.
What would you say to folks who don't live out west, who view the West as pagan and lost, and they've given up hope over California, over Seattle, over Portland? How would you respond to responses like that, who say there's no hope out there?
Yeah, I would say I have sometimes felt that myself, honestly, and I understand that. But I also, the bigger they come, the harder they fall. And I almost wonder if we're already starting to see, for sure, I'm seeing this in Southern California, Northern California, Portland. We're seeing somewhat of a revival. And so what I would say to those that might think that is, next time you hear Portland, rioting or something like that, or drugs and homicide, when you hear that, just say a prayer for us, because the Lord is moving. And I think this is a time that the Lord is stirring something really cool here. And I think we're seeing it really around the country, revival spots. There's hot spots where the Lord just seems to be on the move. And I think that's definitely happening in Portland. So I would just say, pray for Portland, pray for the West Coast, and let's see what the Lord might do in these days we're living.
But you definitely see that, you definitely believe that the Spirit is on the move.
Yes.
in your area.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that, in our own church personally, but we're seeing it in some of the churches, here during COVID. A lot of churches in the Portland area shut their doors and never to reopen. But there are some churches, for some reason, the Lord has just kind of lit a fire, and those churches are flourishing. So there's kind of this conundrum between sort of failure, but it's also matched next to churches that are just kind of busting out at the seams. So I think the Lord is just doing kind of a unique work, and we're just hanging on for the ride, really.
What is the future of the PDX Crusade? I know you guys have prayed about it and are thinking about it. What do you have an answer yet? Do you know what's going to happen?
I don't have a solid answer yet, but we're all pretty excited. We're still kind of trying to wrap our brains around what actually happened, because it was just so over the top a blessing. And the Lord miraculously provided all the funds for this one. And so we're just praying if the Lord wants us to do it again. I know that we're getting a big demand for it again. And also we have churches and people saying, oh, we missed it and we didn't get, next time count us in. So we get a sense that that there's some momentum here. So we're praying about perhaps next summer possibly doing another one.